Welcome back to In the Seaweeds. It's 2026 and we're back for episode 1 with an amazing guest. Today, Lukas from Archlet. And just like Ship Angel are going to expand rapidly this year from being a rate system to an operating system, we're going to do the same on In the Seaweeds. We had some amazing guests last year, from public company CEOs like Svi from Freightos to some of the industry leaders like Patrick from Zanetta. And we're really going to look up the ante this year. So we have a shipping line CEO from a top 10 shipping line lined up, and we have an actual software billionaire lined up as guests. So stay tuned. It is going to be quite the year on In the Seaweeds. So I would love to welcome Lukas from Archlet to the show today. An absolutely amazing founder, one of the co-founders of Archlet, and also an unbelievable company. I've been in this space for more than 2 decades. And I don't say it lightly that I can count on one hand the amount of times I've seen supply chain software that made me go, wow. And Archlet's product made me go, wow. And as well as the product, they have had insane revenue growth. That's something that you don't hear too often in early stage supply chain startups. So Lukas, welcome to In the Seaweeds. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Hi, Graham.
Thank you. So, Lukas, let's start in the early days. Your childhood, growing up. How did it shape kind of the entrepreneur that you've become today?
Yeah, great question. I grew up in Switzerland, but I'm half Austrian. So it was always funny because as a Swiss with an Austrian passport, in Switzerland they call it the Austrian, and in Austria they call it the Swiss. But I would say I feel more Swiss than Austrian. But I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and my dad actually started his own company 1994, exactly when I got born. So basically, I witnessed from starting from zero to building up a company with more than 500 people from the early days, which was really fun. And I was in the factories all the time, and I was really excited by seeing what he and then my mom joined even. So it was like a big family company effort. So that's, I think, what helped me to understand it's possible to do something on your own and you don't really need to go to a corporate. So that was also one of my dreams to do something by myself instead of going and joining a large corporate world.
Wow. And what was it like, Lukas? Because you must have seen both sides. I mean, on one side, most of your friends, I guess, their fathers were working in corporate jobs or whatever, and your father was an entrepreneur, which is amazing. And then I guess on the opposite side, you probably saw, the kind of pain and suffering and sacrifices. Was there kind of, was there a moment where you were like, this is so worth it, or were you sure that clear corporate wasn't for you?
To be honest, I just didn't understand it back in the days. I just knew that he was never here. So in hindsight, I would have probably preferred someone who works a 9-to-5 job. But now looking back, obviously, I realized what they were doing together was pretty cool. And they kind of really worked on their dream, and it worked out in the end for them. So it was great to see that trajectory from a start from an idea and build actually a company around it.
That's amazing to see. No extra pressure when you see that, right?
Yeah, I know.
And then, so you grow up. Let's kind of take it from you were just graduated, started Archlet, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, that was brutal because we started Archlet directly out of university. We literally, none of our 3 founders. I founded it with 2 of my student colleagues. We never worked, so we never ever had a corporate job, which is horrible and great at the same time. But basically, we had the student project at ETH in Zurich, which is a technical university in Europe. And literally, a person from a company called MCore, it's a packaging company, they called the university and asked for help because they were running a large RFP. They collected thousands of data points, price points, lead times, and they needed someone to analyze that data for them. So we literally did that during a student project. We went to the company. We tried to understand the problem. We solved we gave them a simple optimization engine, And we pitched it to them, and they were so excited about it that we thought, wow, if that's already exciting them, we should build a proper company around that problem. We started it 1st of March. We hired the first person. 14th of March, lockdown hit. So our company story was 2 weeks in office and then almost a year kind of in home office. So it was a crazy start for us.
Wow. And what was that like? I mean, on one side with COVID, you had, a kind of a real push on supply chain software. And then on the opposite side, you had people just, in panic mode all the time. Do you think it made it more difficult at the start?
I honestly believe these crises, usually if you have a software company, crises are great for your existing clients because you can help them be a good partner, help them solve the problem and make sure they kind of get out of that issue quicker. But if you try to acquire new companies, all they do is firefighting. So they don't have time to talk to a freshly graduated team who wants to talk about sourcing. They want to actually source masks. They want to source power banks, things you cannot help them with. So for us, I would say from an sales point of view, it didn't help. But what it did help was we had back in the days 5 pilot clients and they had a lot of time for us. So we spent hours discussing with users, hours discussing, getting their feedback. That was amazing because we really had time to build and we were not distracted at all.
Wow. And, as the product evolved, Lukas, if you think about it, from kind of thinking about it to being an analytics engine for sourcing decisions, and then was there a moment of kind of going, hey, we can actually be the source of truth for these companies? Was that a bit of a process or was it like an aha moment for you guys?
Yeah. So as you do, when you build ShipAngel, right, we started with that super concrete problem. We had a problem of if you run a large RFP and you collect many offers from different suppliers, you have a lot of manual work to do to understand these offers, prepare negotiations, and really understand how will you allocate the business in the end. Now, we always thought that's the niche we should solve only because collecting the offers, communicating with suppliers, there were thousands of e-sourcing tools in the market, right? And we thought we just want to become the best add-on for sourcing decision-making, which works with all the suite providers you can think of. We worked with SAP Ariba, Coupa, Jagger, and everyone else. But then we realized the process of collecting the data is also a big pain point for the buyers and sourcing managers because suppliers don't know how to log in. It sounds silly, but other sourcing tools, they struggle to onboard suppliers. Then the whole communication is not ideal. So the pain point was almost the same, meaning for us, we kind of got forced by our clients to forward integrate. So we rolled up the field from the back. We started with optimization. We went into negotiation and bid analytics. And then we added the supplier portal as the last puzzle piece of our software, which makes us still very unique because we're built around data. We're not built around the process. We're built around data. And that then obviously was pretty obvious that, okay, we need to go away from being an analytics tool only to becoming an analytics first sourcing tool.
Yes. And I've seen pretty much every sourcing tool out there. And to me, Archlet is the best I've seen. Building that product serves some of the biggest brands in the world. When you look at you and your co-founders, is it a mixture of business input, engineering input? What was the secret sauce of building something great? Was it an ethos that you guys had, or what's the kind of secret behind that?
Yeah, I would actually say there's no secret because we are all engineers by training.
Okay.
So we're all electrical or data science engineers, meaning we had to listen to our end users because we didn't really know how the process works. So I think the secret sauce was we were highly dependent on the end user, on the actual sourcing manager who runs these RFPs, and we had to listen super carefully. And that was also how we built the product. We always focused on end user value, and that was our highest priority. Everything we do should make their life easier.
Yes. And we talked a little bit off camera just now about, even go back to 2020 and you guys are building Archlet and, building Archlet now. And again, for the listeners, this is one of the fastest growing supply chain software startups I've seen this decade. And the product is amazing. In terms of I've tried to get 10 minutes into the show without mentioning AI, and I think I've done it. So I'm going to mention it now. When we think about AI and you think about how it's affected the product so far in a positive way and how it can go, how do you think about that? Leading a fast growing company, serving some of the biggest brands in the world.
Yeah, good question. And also curious how you think about that, to be very honest, because it's changing so fast. How you can leverage AI as a company has changed so quickly over the last couple of months, and it will change again. So whatever I say now will be outdated in 6 months. Maybe as a overall schema, when Archlet started, our biggest data input were numerical values. We were able to optimize on price points. We were able to optimize on payment terms and Incoterms and Incoterms. So payment terms and lead times. These were our main factors, and we had algorithms and mathematical optimization, which actually was able to digest a lot of data points. Whenever ChatGPT started to come out the corner, 2023, roughly, suddenly it changed the game completely for us because we went away from being able to optimize structured data to be able to optimize unstructured data. And if you think about running a sourcing event, let's say if you run an ocean freight bid, you for sure get a lot of documents from these carriers because they will tell you their contract details. They will give you answers on some questions. That's also a big part of running a freight sourcing tender, right? That means that suddenly we were able to also digest and analyze unstructured data, text, documents, and so on. And that was a huge enabler for us. So thanks to that AI push on the generative AI front, we were able to expand our offering drastically. And we embedded OpenAI and Perplexity as of day one, whenever they came out, which was a big, big enabler. So that's more for the client-facing side. What we've also discussed, Graham, right before the podcast is we're also using AI internally, for example, for coding. We have AI technology, which codes our basic code, which is pretty scary. And also no one actually believed in that 2 years ago.
Yeah, it is incredible, Lukas. And we're recording this the end of January, the week of near the end of January, the week of Davos. And we saw the Anthropic CEO talk this week about software engineering. I mean, last year he said that 90% of code would be written by AI in 9 months. And I think if you give him a buffer of 3 months from our perspective, he was right. And if you extrapolate that into the next year, it talks about kind of, the scenario where the entire software engineering process is automated by AI. But, again, like we talked about earlier off camera, it doesn't mean that, we don't need great engineers. It just means that they're working on different parts of the problem. They can do more. But it is, like you say, I mean, if we could get a time machine and move forward 12 or 18 months, I think the world will look drastically different. And I think it's very difficult to understand that. Like for us, the analogies I use internally is, most of us buy iPhones regularly and we get our iOS update once a year and it's pretty significant. And we think somehow about like annual cycles, but AI is a weekly version of that. It's like there's a new iOS every week,
Yeah.
And the other analogy I think about is like this concept of it being a marathon. Like we're running like in our worlds, in our work lives, this is the marathon of our lives we're running right now. A marathon is a long run, and like Claude Cowork came out last week, and it's kind of transformed some of our non-engineering workflows in a matter of days. It's done some incredible things. And if you think about that, it feels like a marathon, and you're kind of going from a normal pace to a run, and then you go, I can't run a marathon forever. So you've got to pace yourself too, which makes it very difficult, right? From an AI perspective.
No, I agree. And I think what's also interesting is when we started Archlet, people were always afraid that we take away their job, which back in the days was a risk everyone saw. When you pitch software, they're like, oh, but what am I doing then? And I think that also changed a lot, because now I do believe maybe not all the jobs, obviously not all the jobs will be taken away by AI, but they will be taken away by people who use AI. Like it will be still somehow a combination between someone who's smart enough to know how to use the best tools to be smarter than others.
Yes. And then changing gears, Lukas, I would say, when we look at guests on the show, we want the best founders on, but we really want good human beings as well. And you are absolutely one of those. And I always appreciate your honesty. And one of the things we try to get into in the show is the highs and lows. And particularly, I'm sure you have friends who think that you probably live this charmed life, running this big company. And if they got a camera on you for a day or two, they'd probably be shocked at, the amount of stuff that you have to do. And thinking about that from like a venture capital perspective, Lukas, like thinking through the different rounds of capital that Archlet has raised, what was that like?
Yeah, and maybe we might not be the best example for how we turned venture capital money into success. And I'm very honest about this. And it's not the first time I speak about it. But basically, what happened was we got out of the university. We started the company. We reached 1 million ARR in 12 months. COVID was there. So everyone went absolutely bonkers, right? There was never a question about how will you ever turn this company into profitability. They literally just were looking for hyper growth. So we also obviously were part of that train. We jumped on the train, the VC train. We raised a seed round of 6 million, and 6 months later, we got preempted for Series A for 15 million in total. So within 12 months, we had a lot of money. Now, the problem was, first of all, and I mean, I'm very honest, but it's in the Seaweeds. So first-time founders directly out of university. How do you know how to spend the money properly? Second of all, young product, very young product. Yes, quick success with large clients, but not ready to scale. But what we did is we hired people, and our company headcount grew to 65 people. And that was how we spent the money. I personally had a team of 21 people in go-to-market. Fast forward, we realized that we were not ready to grow at that pace. We were actually not ready on a structure, let's say, go-to-market point of view, but also from an engineering point of view. So we course corrected, and we started to grow more sustainably together with our clients in 2023. So we really went away from growing at all costs to grow sustainably, build a company which is less dependent on external capital, and go towards profitability. And that shift sounds absurd because yes, we have raised a lot of money, and yes, we should have been kind of that unicorn by now. But in reality, in supply chain tech specifically, or specifically now in procurement, when you talk about sourcing, there are some limits how fast you can grow. Decisions take long. It's not like a urgency-driven sales motion. So I think in hindsight, we should have known that. We didn't. We learned a lot. Like I would actually obviously say we should have done a lot of things different. But where we are now is only because what we've done wrong in the past, right? And now we are literally a profitable company. We grow sustainable, but still like very fast, as you said. We grew almost every year 100%.
Wow.
So it's going very well, but we spend the money much more wisely. You know what I mean? So, and now it's funny because, sorry, I'm talking to a lot, but now the same bubble starts again, right? The AI VC bubble. Companies now raise the same amount of money with even crazier valuations. And we know 2022, when that everything like went back to normal, they said, we will never do that again. We will never do that mistake again. 2 years later, we're back at, I think it's just a cycle.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, Lukas, and thank you for giving us a deep dive on that, because it's so interesting. I think a lot of our listeners are also early stage founders, and especially in the supply chain software world, and a lot of people when they go on podcasts in general, not this one, but they'll focus everything on the 15 million and everything that they raise. But like, it's so amazing to see, like you say, you've got a profitable business today. Shifting gears again for a second, Lukas, one of the things I hear a lot that kind of catches early stage startups is, you show your product to a big company, they really like it. The incumbent comes back and says, "Oh, but we're this giant business and we've got this balance sheet and blah blah blah," and it seems to catch like 9 out of 10 startups that they can't do it. But when I look at your customers, they're literally the biggest brands on planet Earth. And can you talk a little bit about navigating that maze of like showing a Fortune 10 company a product, or a top 5 global freight forwarder a product, and they say, "Oh, we like it." And as founders, we all get really excited. But we always forget that like that stage 1.5 and stage 38.9 is going to be when they sign the contract. How do you navigate that?
I think it was also obviously a bit of a coincidence that the pain point we found was big enough that existing legacy tools were not able to solve it. And the complexity was too high for them to claim we can do it. And that's why for us, that niche was a great entry, like understanding how to run complex annual road freight and annual ocean freight or air freight bids with like thousands of quotes, up to thousands of suppliers, right? In road freight RFPs, there are cases where we have like 5,000 suppliers bidding. So that type of complexity was too high for the legacy suite providers to claim. Even they claimed it, they didn't believe them. And that was an amazing help for us, that we were able to find a niche which is like good in the value is high enough to argue it's worth to go after, but also it's too complex for them to build something quickly and claim it as done.
Yeah.
But we still, to be very honest, like we work with large corporates, as you mentioned, among others, Walmart, PepsiCo, Comcast, FedEx, etc. We still are challenged with legacy providers. Like we need to show them the differences probably every year, maybe every second year, because obviously the IT team or the CIO, they then always have these large transformations with SAP or Oracle, and they all have a sourcing engine. So then they say, why don't we just use that? It's kind of for free. And then we need to argue, well, Archlet is obviously in a different league.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that something you see too from a Ship Angel perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my last company in containers, we sold into shipping lines and freight forwarders, and it was a very different sales motion to selling to shippers now in the Ship Angel world. But to your earlier point, Lukas, I think it's not we talk about some of our products as been solving hair on fire problems. But it's difficult because, there's a lot of legacy in the industry. Like you said, decisions don't tend to be made all that fast, unless you can kind of find the person when they have the acute pain point and they're actively looking. But I would totally agree with you. I think that's one of the things from, for me, having spent my career in this and been a good bit through my career already. I really hope that, when we get to kind of 2030 and the next decade, like that there'll be a maturity that's maybe not there in the industry as a whole in supply chain software, where it's just more enterprise-esque. It's more, when you're talking to a CIO of a Fortune 500 company, that the implementation and what you're showing them is more akin to when they bought HubSpot or when they bought Monday or when they bought Rippling. That type of process. And I really want that for the industry. Thinking about that kind of 2030 piece and, the incredible trajectory that you're on, where do you want Archlet to be in 2030?
Yeah, so we want to be the market leader, the category leader for e-sourcing and e-auctions. So we really want to be the one solution you think of when you want to connect buyers with suppliers in any operational process. And that's obviously still a journey. We're working on different areas to get there. On the one hand side, expanding our offering that we are a true e-sourcing powerhouse. On the other hand side, of course, continue to work with our users that they really say, I want to use it again and I want to come back. And it was an amazing experience to run an RFP through Archlet. And I don't have to spend night shifts or weekends crunching data. Archlet does it for me.
Yeah. And when you think about the journey, Lukas, what's the biggest missing piece you never thought about before that people wouldn't expect of, that's been part of your journey, that like something you didn't think about at the very start and now it's like, yeah, that's important?
Now it's our 6th anniversary soon, in March, right? We were doing it since 6 years. And I always thought starting a company is all about having a great idea and then pursuing that idea. But for me, the biggest learning when I also see others start companies is like, don't focus on the idea, focus on the problem you're solving. Yes. Because with that problem, you will get a validation if you have a business case which is valuable enough to build a company around it. Many of my friends who, after now 5 years of consulting, for example, they have the urgency to create a company, but they all start with an idea. And I just realized it's so much harder to bring that idea into life versus starting with a problem and just solve the problem. Every day you wake up, you solve the problem. And then you build a company around that problem. So I think that's a big learning. And another big learning for that 6th anniversary specifically are people who build it with you. I mean, I was so lucky that I had 2 of my colleagues starting the company with me, or we did it together. I don't know if I would be here if we would not have been 3 people, because when I had a low, Tim or Jacob had a high. When they had a low, I had a high. So one of us 3 was always positive and motivated. And with that, we kept going. And I think that was pretty important, at least from my side. I could not have been a solo founder. And then obviously with people also comes our core leadership team is so important for our next couple of years, because we could not do it without them. So we also need to make sure that they stay with us as long as possible with the right incentives and make sure that they have an amazing time too, because we really need that core team to grow the company with us.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking about you again, Lukas, so you moved from Switzerland to the East Coast of the US as Archlet continues its mission on taking over the world and growing your US presence. Yes. What's the move been like, and what's a day in your life typically like?
It changed because I said, yes, I moved from Zurich to Philadelphia. Anyone who's in Philly, let me know. I know it might not be the most entrepreneurial city, but so far it's treating me well. My day is very chaotic. I'm a very, how can I explain that best? But I'm not that structured. I need chaos in my life. And that's also how I work, unfortunately. Not always the easiest for my team, I know. However, currently it's pretty long days because I start at 6 a.m. Eastern time with calls, team calls, but also in client calls, prospect calls in Europe until probably 12. I do a quick break and then I have my check-in with the US team at 1:30 p.m. And then the US time zone starts. So it's a long day, but I really enjoy it. I'm doing home office the first time after COVID, which is a bit different, but I also started to like it. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to meet people again here or in New York. I had the chance to meet your team, Graham, in New York, right? So these trips are getting excite me a lot, and that's something I'm trying to build into my week actively to exchange with people who are from here and network.
Yeah, the train journey between Philadelphia and New York is nice and short. In fact, quick funny story. I went to see a customer in Philadelphia in September.
Okay.
Maybe September, October time. And when I was in the reception, they said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. The meeting rooms are full. We have some space in the WeWork." We walked 5 or 6 minutes to a WeWork. We had the meeting and we were walking out and I saw an office. You know the way the WeWorks are, there's like lots of different size, different offices.
Yeah.
I could see an office with 2 huge container ships. And, knowing the industry, those container ships, every ship gets like so many, you get one big giant one that goes into a HQ somewhere. Then you get 20 this size and you get 250 this size. And these were like big ones. And I was like, whoa, Evergreen and Maersk ships. I mean, this must be somebody.
Yeah.
So for the first time in my entire career at 46, I knocked on the door. I was like, I have to know. I have to know who it is. And the 3 people in the office looked utterly terrified. They were like, what is this guy trying to sell me? And how did he get past the 6 swipes in the WeWork to get in? And it turned out to be a big exporter who was in the midst of an amazing digital transformation. And it ended up being a 6-figure deal by the end of the year. So when we did our sales kickoff, we looked at we got so many customers from LinkedIn ads and Google ads and outreach and contacts. And there's one down the end from cold calling, knocking on a door. So
amazing.
So
I think learning knock more often.
When I come and see you next time, I'm going to find another door to knock on in Philadelphia and see if I can.
Let's go together.
Yeah. Definitely. And, the US market is, we talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago as well, Lucas, in terms of like the US market, just the sheer scale of it, versus Europe. Have you seen any kind of like early nuances, differences between dealing kind of in the US versus Europe and in any of the kind of outreach or sales process or even the ecosystem?
Yes, we see differences. I think one difference which comes to my mind directly is decision cycles. So in Europe, it can easily, for a large corporate, multinational corporate headquartered in Europe, usually it takes like a lot of people to be involved in a decision, like many meetings, I mean like 20, 30 meetings with questions, answers, in-person exchanges, etc. What I realized in the US, it's if there's a project and they say, well, e-sourcing is a topic, I want to solve it in the next 6 months, there's a project team and the decision makers are very clearly defined. It's also clearly communicated to us by saying, look, these are the 3 people who will be assessing the tool. Budget is coming from X, and we will make a decision by Y, which is amazing. And the transparency on that is something different to Europe. In Europe, oftentimes, we don't even know who makes decisions, when is the timeline, when is it done. So what happened now for me was it was really great to understand like when is the right timing to meet them in person and really be there and show presence, because they really make the decision. And it happened now. I'm here since 7 months, but I closed 3 deals with a sales cycle of 3 months, which is very, very much faster than what we have in Europe in average. In average, in Europe, it's 9 months. So of course, I tell myself it's an outlier, but I do feel like that if there's a project, decisions are made faster. Of course, let's see if that holds true, but maybe you have some experience in that sense as well.
Yeah, no, I would echo everything you say. I think the sheer size of the market in the US, generally speaking, mid-size, especially US businesses, which would be most of our joint targets, have a lot more SaaS applications than their European counterparts. They make decisions faster, the market's bigger. So that's a great way to end the show on a positive on the sales cycle. And thank you so much for joining us today, Lukas. I really appreciate your insights, and I'll see you in Philadelphia soon to knock on a few doors together, see how that goes. That would make for a good second episode. Maybe.
Yes, let's go.
More success. Huh?
And we are also super excited to partner with Ship Angel, and thanks for having me, Graham. We're really, really looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you. We're a company that goes very, very well together with Archlet, and we're excited to work with you guys as well, and wish you and your colleagues even more success in 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.